Iowa State has a chance to make history and defeat Cincinnati 2 times in one season today. I don't know how important that history is, but I do know for certain it'll be going down in the history books. This is Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we're going to be talking about Iowa State men's basketball and their upcoming game against Cincinnati. Obviously, the rematch we've all been waiting for. Then we got to get into Tyrese Haliburton. What has he done for Iowa State? The answer? Basically everything. And then finally, in the third segment, we'll talk about the individual honors that this team has won. We talked about Curtis Jones already, but there is more to that and just how important that is. I can't wait to dive into it. But first, today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert. Okay, so this is for certain. Iowa State, the 5 seed in the Big 12 tournament. When the bracket gets laid out, we know Iowa State will be facing either Cincinnati or Oklahoma State. At the time, we didn't know who it was going to be because they had to play each other. But I can tell you now with certainty, Oklahoma State lost to Cincinnati 68-87. That means the Bearcats will be taking on Iowa State 11:30 a.m. on March 12th. If you're watching it after, comment down below what you thought. Obviously, we'll cover that on Thursday for sure. But for now, let's talk a little bit about the past and what's coming up. Obviously, what to expect in this game. The last time these two teams faced off, I don't know why I started there. Iowa State came out on top 81-70. And this one, at the time, Cincinnati was potentially going to be a problem. Kind of got hot a little bit in there. But obviously, Iowa State took care of business. Now, in that last game, Jizzle James stood out, okay? 25 points in 27 minutes, went 5 of 9 from beyond the arc, had 2 free throws, and overall shot 9-16 from the floor. Then you saw Day Thomas with 13 and Aziz Bendaugo with 10, okay? Those were your top 3 scorers. They had 3 guys in double digits. Let's take a look at Oklahoma State Cincinnati just because I think it's relatively important. It's obviously the most recent game they've played in the Big 12 tournament as well. So of importance, in my opinion. Your leading scorer was Day Thomas. Okay. So he had 21 in this one. Then Josh Reed had 19. Dylan Mitchell had 18. And Dan Skillings Jr. had 13. Now, I didn't mention Jizzle James. He only had 7 in this one. Went 1 of 5 from beyond the arc and only 2 of 10 from the floor, added 2 free throws in 27 minutes. So stark difference for Mr. Jizzle James. But there obviously are some relatively newer names on there, some we hadn't mentioned. Josh Reed only had 6 points in 23 minutes last time these two teams faced off. And so I do wonder, maybe something cooking over there in Cincinnati. I'm not too worried about it. I do think Iowa State is going to be just fine in this one. I will say that the records, it's all kind of pointing towards Iowa State, right? Head to head, overall conference record, overall record. But I mean, really, when these tournaments start, record is 0-0, and you've never faced anyone before. I know that's not true, but the record being 0-0 is kind of true. It doesn't really matter what you've done in the past. If you played them, helps with tape. But outside of that, I mean, you got to go out there and play ball. So now that we've kind of got some of these past formalities out of the way, what is going to happen in this one? What needs to happen? Let's say that. I do think Iowa State has a few things that they need to do well. For one, TJ Otzelberger mentioned this. Cincinnati turned over Iowa State, I think, 18 times last time these two teams played. Iowa State had, 18 turnovers. And obviously, Iowa State has struggled with that at times. That's something that Iowa State has to keep to a minimum here against Cincinnati. We can't go into this assuming just because we've beat them, and as I said, like the record and our records and all of that, oh, it's going to be a walk in the park. Let's look ahead to BYU. No, we can't do that. I mean, you kidding me? That's not an option. Obviously, we have to go in assuming well, I don't want to go in assuming we're going to lose, but you understand what I'm saying with a sense of urgency here. And so limiting turnovers is going to be a big part of that. The other thing that I do think is going to be huge is Iowa State getting into the paint. Out rebounded Cincinnati. Where is it here? I got lost a little bit. 19-37. So almost doubled them up on rebounds, which is relatively big, obviously. And then the average rebounding for Cincinnati is only 34.7. It is 34.7. So we held them to 19 on an average of 34.7. That's really good. Have to keep doing that. Obviously, that's a pretty big difference. I looked through some of these others, and it wasn't anything too crazy. But the one other statistic that stood out to me was Iowa State shooting 30 free throws against Cincinnati. Okay. Now, on average, for a frame of reference, Iowa State shoots about 23.3 free throws attempted per game. Okay. Average is 75%. Now, that's going to lead me into my next point, which is I think Iowa State needs to attack the paint early and often in this one. I know we've seen this team do all sorts of things. They can beat you in any different way. That's great. If Curtis Jones goes out there and shoots 5 of 10 from 3, you get another 3 from Milan, maybe a pair from Tamin. Curtis is able to add, not Curtis, Keshon's able to add a few as well. Great. If you can beat them from beyond the arc, do it. But I do think that this team, Iowa State, seems to be better when we can attack the paint early and often. Assert not the dominance, but certainly the aggression. Set the tone there early. That's a big one. Now, obviously, that we've talked about TJ and the aggressiveness, the dominance keeps stepping into my brain here because I'm thinking about Joshua Jefferson in the paint. But overall aggressiveness of this team and the defensive aggressiveness is where he stems that from, right? If you're aggressive on defense and in transition, it will translate over to offense. I do agree. I think Iowa State, if they are extremely aggressive on defense in this game, will help. Obviously, turned over BYU 29 times. That's a number that I don't think very many people will honestly forget. That was a crazy game. If you could do that to Cincinnati, I have no doubts that you'll end up coming away with that one. The question is, now we've talked about all these theories. Will Keshon Gilbert contribute massively in this game? I think he'll play a normal game is kind of how I'm going to put this. Apparently played a solid practice on Monday. Thought it was good again on Tuesday, according to TJ. Obviously, he's not going to be at 100%, and he does actually lead the team in minutes per game. Does that really matter? I don't necessarily think so. But I do think it's of note. And so I'll be interested to see if Iowa State's up by like 7 or 8 with a couple minutes to go, how much are we testing the waters with Keshon, knowing that for Iowa State to win a Big 12 title, they have to win 4 games in 4 days. And then you go right into March Madness. So I would be curious to see what his play looks like, how many minutes, what's the play style he's going out there with. But I do want to know, I really don't want to see him shooting a ton of threes. I'd like to see him get in there, get aggressive, play the ball that I know that he can play so well, that he can play so well. All of us know. But, I mean, I just don't want to see him kind of playing three-point line to three-point line. Like, if you're going to put him out there, let him do – well, not saying that they're holding him back, but do your thing, Keshon. That's what I'm saying. And in that same vein, it's a great time to bring it up. I've been talking on and off about Iowa State. Should they lose? Should they rest up? I want to make it clear again. I am not saying Iowa State should go into this game wanting to lose. They need to go in wanting to win, of course. Would they benefit from rest if they were to lose, is my question. And I've got both sides of this. I think you need to win Cincinnati. Win against Cincinnati. Beat Cincinnati. I think that's important. Get some momentum going. Now, could you lose to BYU and then you end up getting a couple days off? That's not the end of the world, in my opinion. But the other side of this, is if they do lose this game, likely they'll have everybody on the floor, and it will be it's another loss on the full team out there kind of column, because they're 19-2 at the moment when everybody's out there. But at the same time, I think that they have enough winning under their belt that I don't think it'll matter. So I just wanted to throw that in here really quick. I don't think that it will be the end of the world if they lose this game. Does it hurt? Does it hurt mentally? Maybe. That's my biggest concern. But I also think that they've seen so much success with everybody out there. They'll be able to bounce back quickly. And honestly, I want to make it clear from what I've seen. I'm not saying this because I think that this is what the team will do. Like they'll go out there and they'll kind of just fart around and it'll end up being all right because we're getting rest. The vibes I'm getting from this team are we're going to go out and dominate. We're going to go out and try to win this Big 12 championship, and then we're going to go dominate March Madness. That's from what I've seen. Tamin and Lipsey talking about this is the most exciting time of the year. It's win or go home from now on, especially, I mean, you kind of do it twice. So you win, go home, and then you kind of go back and do a different one. Then you might go home type of deal. But either way, it's you can't really lose anymore. So I do think this team has that mentality, which is the right one to have. Do not go into these games with, okay, it's fine if we lose. Go in with we got to win. It's just that there could be a byproduct of some rest. That wouldn't be the end of the world. That's what I wanted to elaborate on that. Now, Tyrese Haliburton, certified winner. We got to talk about that coming up right after this. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed, no waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Okay, Tyrese Haliburton is a dog. Let's get it out of the way. We all know this. We all understand this. This is well-known knowledge at this point, especially here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Now, there is a quote that it's a little bit old by now, but there's been a lot of things going on, and we got to talk about it, especially after the amazing three-point shot he hit last night. Tyrese, playing for the Pacers, obviously USA gold medalist, came back with George Niang, and Hilton was fired up about it, wearing the sick leather jacket. I mean, I cannot. Tyrese, if you watch this show, message me. I will purchase that off of you. I've got about $5 in my pocket, and that's my budget, but I'll make it worth your while. I think that shirt or that leather jacket is absolutely legendary. Now, that aside, Tyrese had some comments about the Wisconsin to Iowa State kind of pipeline that are second to none. Okay. I mean, this is an absolute nuke for Iowa State recruiting. I don't know if there's any other way really to look at this. Obviously had a few quotes in there, and we'll get to one at the very end, but the one that's really been turning heads is I personally I'll say, quote, I personally feel like if you're from Wisconsin, you'd rather go to Iowa State than Wisconsin. That's just how the cookie crumbles these days. That's an unbelievable quote. Obviously coming from a Wisconsin native himself. TJ actually a Wisconsin native as well. Don't know if you knew that. But either way, that's huge. Now, we've talked a lot about obviously the football side of things and kind of don't know why I said that. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, and their kind of importance in their success in the wide receiver realm and how that's going to translate. We've talked about the top 10 streak that did unfortunately break, but what that does for recruiting. We've talked about all these different kind of things around recruiting, but one thing for sure, when you have a guy that went from Iowa State directly to the pros and is an absolute, I mean, just a dog, right? And also gold medalist, like that, people will see that and immediately go, okay, that I want to do that. Where do I go? Where did he go? All right, Iowa State. And what does he think of Iowa State? Okay, you'd rather go to Iowa State than Wisconsin? Wait, I'm from Wisconsin, but Wisconsin's hometown. But if he's saying that and everything he's done, that's like, I feel like how these kind of things are going. And this is this is a wonderful thing if you're an Iowa State fan. And really, honestly, if you're a player that's younger, because you're going to be bringing in some top talent from Wisconsin, Obviously, we haven't talked a whole lot about some incoming guys, for this basketball team. We'll talk a little bit more about that as the season kind of wraps up, which is unfortunately coming soon. So let's enjoy every moment. But Jamarian Bateman and Xavier Mitchell are two of the top 5 players in Wisconsin's 2025 player rankings. And I don't think these guys recruited, signed, or like verbally agreed to come to Iowa State after the comment. So that is a good thing. Like, we're already seeing it kind of solidify. But there are some names in the 2026 class that, I mean, maybe they were influenced. And then there's the, 2027, 2028. And I don't need to go into all of these names here because, to be completely honest, I haven't done the due diligence on them at this point. We'll do that down the line. Don't worry. But the overarching theme here is, one, Iowa State is on the up and up, football and basketball, getting national relevance. And we're seeing real, actual, tangible success from players who were at Iowa State and are now in the pros. Tyrese Haliburton, obviously the one that kind of comes to name on the basketball side of things. I could name tons of football guys. Of course, I mean, you can as well. I'm not going to. Okay, we'll name a few. Obviously, Brock Purdy, Breece Hall, Alan Lazard. Just okay, and honestly, it was kind of the Iowa State Jets there for a minute. But either way, that's not the point of the show. What I'm saying here is the success we're seeing at the pro level is going to directly translate to more success at the college level, because it's when guys are making decisions to where do they want to go. Iowa State is up there, top, I think probably top 1 for culture, in my opinion. And then the success you're seeing from beyond. This is no longer a program where you kind of just come, have fun, enjoy Welch Avenue, and then move on. This is a place where you go if you want to develop and get a lot better and succeed at the next level as well. And obviously, there's going to be the whole NIL situation and Iowa State not having the same funds as some other schools out there. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like what we talked about yesterday with Matt Campbell. I don't really care if guys watch the spring game. I mean, these guys have been getting recruited for 4 years and they still stuck around. Like that right there, the culture that this, obviously basketball and football, have. But it's like a little like star, like nebula, like a little like black hole. It's so just intense, and it's so like perfectly manicured. The extensions that we've talked about of Otz and Campbell, I think, are both absolutely monumental. And so it's going to stick around. But I mean, what is there not to love, right? The culture, and that kind of counteracts the actual money side of things, the development that we're seeing from the pros, and then their direct sponsor. I'm blanking on the word I want to use. Endorsement is the word I want to use. Endorsement of the college. I mean, if you're from Wisconsin, Iowa State's probably a better option. Boom. Tyrese, absolute legend. Like I said, want that leather jacket. That thing was sick. But either way, I mean, probably paid for it with his freaking massive extension. But that's what could be coming your way if you come to Iowa State. And I think that's something that a lot of recruits are looking at. Right? I mean, they got to weigh all these options. They're top in the state. I don't know what that's like, but I do know what it's like to be an Iowa State Cyclone. And I know that everyone that's been an Iowa State Cyclone realizes the value in that, especially from guys that come from other places. And they talk about how great it is here. I mean, we're going to talk about Curtis Jones in a minute here. Came from somewhere else. Joshua Jefferson came from somewhere else. Come into Iowa State. All of a sudden, Curtis Jones turn heads. Big deal. All of a sudden, Joshua Jefferson, arguably one of the greatest big men to ever walk the planet. Big deal. Then you see this from a Pacers legend at this point, almost probably going to have his jersey hung in the rafters. There, after getting it hung here, I mean, how can you ignore that? This was an absolute legendary. I mean, are you kidding me? Another quote here said, "I hope that I've been able to grow something. I think that people from Wisconsin see the success that I had there and the people before me have had, and I think that they want to continue to do that." Now, I'm going to use that to say the success at Iowa State right now is unbelievable. Obviously, we love the endorsement from Tyrese Haliburton, but we're also seeing it on the court right now at this very moment in time. We're going to talk about that coming up right after this. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's calorie smart, protein plus, or keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I recently tried their Protein Plus meals, and they were packed with flavor and kept me full throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started with factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off and use code LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnCollege50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Iowa State is seeing success like almost never before, and it's amazing to see. I'm trying to soak up every moment of it. I know you are as well. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And Curtis Jones winning sixth man of the year was something we've talked about. And so, I'm not going to basically have the same conversation here because there are new things we're going to mention. But that was a big one. That was a very big deal. Curtis Jones, we talked about him basically being a sixth starter, leading the team in points. Dog. But guess what? This whole team is riddled with dogs, front to back, left to right, top to bottom. Okay. It's like a cube. You can visualize a cube in your brain. It's entirely full of Cyclones, and they're all amazing players. End of the day. There are a few awards that were given out, some Big 12 awards, and we got some names we got to mention, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for Curtis Jones, obviously sixth man of the year, but also all Big 12 first team selection. That's a big, big deal. We'll get into that more in a second. Joshua Jefferson winning a couple of awards, obviously the all Big 12 second team and the conference's all newcomer team. And then both Keshon, Gilbert, and Tamin Lipsey are third team all Big 12 honorees. So shout out to those guys. Round of applause for them and everything that they have accomplished this season. Obviously, we know that the job's not finished. There are certainly things that need to be done. But at this moment in time, let's take a second because we have just witnessed potentially one of the greatest Cyclone regular seasons of all time. Yes, it had its ups, it had its downs. Okay. I was right here alongside you. I remember Arizona. I remember BYU. I remember the loss to Oklahoma State. But I also remember the great wins along the way. Remember when Milan was out and then we defeated Kansas by, I think it was like 17 that night, and that place was, Hilton was absolutely rocking. You remember that? There's highs. There's highs in this season, no doubt. And obviously going into the tournament, I feel better than that. Well, I feel very good. Feel very good about this team. I would like to throw in here that Curtis Jones being the sixth man of the year and also all Big 12 first team. I don't have the actual direct report in front of me, but I'm like 99.999% sure that he's the first player to ever do that. So you can cross-check me, comment it down below. But that's an unbelievable. I mean, it makes complete sense to us, right? It makes complete sense to you, to I. We see it. But to be recognized that way is obviously second to none. His first team, right? Big 12 sixth man of the year. So I guess second to the starting five, but really is kind of the best sixth man. So it's kind of like a number one in my book, at least. That's how I'm looking at it. There are a few avenues we can look at this through. There are a couple of lenses, if you will. We're going to have to pull out more than the monocle, probably at least the binoculars, potentially even the trioculars, which I have seen before, and they're very serious. They don't get pulled out very often. The first lens is, of course, the direct result of the team. This team has been unbelievable, 19-2 when everyone's out on the floor. They feel unbeatable at times. Unfortunately, there are numbers in the loss column, but I also wonder how much of that is just kind of a result. Obviously, the Auburn lost early, but the BYU loss, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Late in the season, a weird kind of few weeks before that, Milan missing a lot of time in there, and then Curtis and Keshon and that whole thing. And it's just, there's a lot going on. I'm not too worried about it. This team has seen great success this season. And as I said, very historic team, really. So that's one lens. They are getting recognized for the unbelievable season that they've had. The other lens you could look through is that this is going to have a direct result on recruiting. We talked about that, obviously, that whole second segment. But I do think that it's not just you see guys that go to college and then they go to the pros and they're great, because there are examples of guys who were pretty good in college and then they go to the pros and they just have this absolute skyrocketing moment. Like it was all there, but they were able to get it unleashed in the pros. And now I don't know if that's necessarily the case. You could make that argument. I wouldn't for Tyrese, but I think right now, I think that this team shows that it's showing on the court. I think you obviously look at what Joshua Jefferson and Curtis Jones, their past looks like. What does it look like now? Compare those. That's a direct translation from another university to this one. Look at Tamin Lipsey and his growth. Look at Milan Momcilovic and his growth. Obviously, it comes down to the system and the coach and the team as a whole and everything. But I do think that you can see the direct success of the team, which obviously is a result of the individual players, and that's being recognized. So these guys being recognized for that is a big deal. It's awesome. It's an unbelievable thing. Now we're breaking out the potential triocular here. And as I said, this is a very serious one. This could fuel them to a national title. I know, a little bit crazy. Don't. Let's just hold our horses here. This is a little bit of a confidence boost that this team just might need. Some validation for the efforts that have gone into this season. I talked I think it was probably over a week ago by now, about this team needs to find some juice wherever it's going to come from. Whatever the cause of the juice is, I don't know. Is it orange, apple, pomegranate juice? I don't care. At the end of the day, this team needs a little bit of juice, a little bit of a jump, a jolt to get to that next level. There was not enough time left in the season to get real solid momentum. And I do think that this could kind of be almost more leaning towards sauce than juice at this point, because this is like what we've seen all season. What have they put out on the court all season long? Unbelievable stuff. And now they're getting recognized for it. And I think that that'll validate all of the hardships they've gone through, what they've played through. Obviously, these guys are college students. All of the tests and the everything, right? There's a lot more to being a student athlete than just wheeling themselves out there every Tuesday and Saturday and playing basketball. I mean, if it was just that, that's a dream job, right? But they are student athletes as well. And everything they've dealt with this season, it all makes it worth it when these awards come out. And I don't know, that's your opinion if you think that that's really that important or not. But I can tell you this, when I win an award, it's kind of like, well, that was cool. Thank you for acknowledging that I put my heart and soul into my craft, which I know these guys do every single day. So they get the little bit of confidence boost, the little bit of validation, and they go into these tournaments feeling like, I am a real deal. Okay. We are a great team. Look at all these people that won awards. Look at all of us together. And they probably are saying, Milan, you'd be on this list if you weren't hurt for a lot of the season, right? That's probably, I mean, I have to imagine that they're at least conversing about that. So there's that. It's a little bit of camaraderie. Wow. Camaraderie? I'm thinking Kyle Conradi now. I don't know why. Camaraderie. Haha. It's bringing these guys together as well. Everyone's celebrating each other's achievements. They're all looking at each other. I'm just saying that this could be honestly the best thing ever. And that seems like a little bit of a crazy take, but I do think that there is some validity to these guys not finally, but certainly getting recognized going into this Big 12 tournament and to the March Madness tournament where, I mean, it could be the real deal, right? We've talked about the ceiling of this team and just what might be possible. Got to play the games, unfortunately. So, actually, fortunately, because no one's handing Iowa State the Big 12 title or the March Madness title, national championship. So, I like where we're at underdog-wise there as well. We'll do it. We'll get it done. Obviously, Cincinnati comes first. So, can't wait to see what happens there. And I'll talk about it more tomorrow. Until next time, Cyclone fans. Sayonara.